Hi, and welcome to Creating a Life That Nourishes Body and Soul. Today, I'm super excited to bring to you Lisa Roye-Bowers. She is a seasoned health and wellness mentor for over 30 years, with experience working alongside functional medicine practitioners, herbalists, naturopaths, and neuroscientists. Her personal health journey led her to the transformative world of biohacking and frequency-based wellness, where she found innovative solutions that reignite her passion for helping others. As an independent entrepreneur with Solex, Lisa utilizes state-of-the-art frequency technology to offer personalized health insights and real-time solutions. Her services focus on identifying body imbalances, creating customized audio harmonics, and using subtle energy frequencies to promote well-being in people and pets. So welcome, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you
Thank
here.
you. Thank you, Tracy, for having me.
For those of you who haven't heard about this, the biofrequency stuff, it is so interesting. And I was really fascinated to get to know Lisa and what she does. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about your story and what got you, what started you into this, on this path that you're on.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. I always say that I feel like I was probably born for this path. I was a sick little girl, and they didn't think I'd live to be the age of 3. I was highly allergic to everything. Somebody would pick a newspaper off the grass and pick me up, and I'd stop breathing. So there was a lot of energy towards that at the beginning of my life and finding things to help balance me out. And here I am. I praise God that I'm just, full functioning and loving His world of health. So fast forward, I was in a marriage with a man that had a lot of digestive issues, and it was eventually diagnosed as leaky gut.
Mm.
Well, that was great, but what the heck was leaky gut, and how do I fix it, right? Because the medical world didn't have any answers. So that's when I started really jumping into herbs and nutrition and just fell in love with it. Well, fast forward from there, I developed my own case of imbalances. I went to go see a girlfriend who was dying of cancer in the state of Washington. And when I came back, I got a welt on my bottom, and by the end of the day, it went systemic.
Mm.
That lasted for 8 months. I could hardly wear any clothes.
8 months. Oh.
Yeah, 8 months, the right side of my face paralyzed. It was just miserable. Well, a friend of mine who was a naturopathic doctor, still is, had a device that was frequency based called a QXCI SKIO device. And within 4 sessions, my hives were gone.
4?
Four.
Wow.
4 sessions. And so that led me on that journey. It was a very expensive piece of equipment, but my mom was doing sessions, my husband was doing sessions. We were like, for what we're paying for sessions, we could get this ourselves. And at that time, they let us put it on 2 different devices. So my mom and I split the cost, and we did all of our biofeedback training together. We did our advanced certifications together. And it just opened up a whole new world where I dug into other things called total biology, a little bit of EFT. So I struggled with that. I have to let you know because of my background. I was raised Baptist, and that whole background of fear and am I stepping into something I shouldn't be? I had to really wrestle with that, but soon found that God's beauty is wrapped up in it. And here I am. A few years later, I was handed this AO device, which is the frequency-based device I'm using now. But in between all that is when I was working for a neuroscientist, and we traveled with somebody that does meditation groups all
Mhm.
over the world, and we were the scientific research for his meditation groups. And just bring all of this together, and we realize how much we don't know, how much, and I still feel like that. I still feel like, oh, the more I know, the less I know.
Yes. Yeah. So that is just so fascinating. So what are some of the things that you feel like are the main, I don't know, maybe the things that have been most enriching to you
Mm,
about this, or
yeah,
the most interesting to you about this, or
I do believe that I have found through this that you cannot separate the body and the brain. You just can't. The physical and the emotional play together, and that's come out loud and clear.
Mhm.
The other thing is through this brain mapping of the meditation groups, there was a woman that we were brain mapping. I just need to talk about the power of prayer for just quickly.
Okay.
So when we exported her brain map, which frontal lobe FP1, FP2 is up here, should run between, I don't know, 20 and 40 hertz. And when we exported her brain map, it was over 1 million each side. And we were like, what on earth were you doing while we were brain mapping you? You know, what was going on? And she said that she had people all over the world praying for her while we
Mm,
were brain mapping her.
mm.
That showed me loud and clear that you cannot separate that energy, that frequency, the abundance of prayer.
Yeah, that reminds me of this really beautiful story that I heard about this woman who was going, I believe, if I remember correctly, she had just, a child had just died and she was really struggling. It was really a dark time in her life, and
Mm,
she felt like she was hanging on by her fingernails on the edge
mm,
of a cliff. And she had this dream that she was literally hanging on the edge of a cliff,
mm,
and she heard this, felt this prompting to let go. And she looked down, and all she saw was just a dark abyss. And she's like, I can't let go. It's like, no, just trust and let go.
mm,
And when she got the courage to do that, as she fell a little further, she started seeing a little bit of light at the way down. And the further she fell, she saw this light. It was like this, she described it as like a net of sparkling light.
mm.
And these strands that were woven together,
Wow.
and the net that caught her. And it was, impressed on her that those golden strands were created by people that were praying for her. And I
Oh,
thought, that is such a beautiful visual for that.
it
But
is.
so that is amazing. But can we just take one step back? And for people
Sure.
who might not be familiar with what brain mapping is, what is that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how does it work? You talked about the hertz, but like how does
Thank
that
you.
all?
Yes, it's actually a device that you wear, in that case, a cap. It looks like the old-fashioned swim cap, but it has electrodes in it. This particular one had a 19 electrodes, and you're hooked up to a machine that is monitoring your brain waves and processing those. So we have those different alpha, theta, delta, gamma,
Mhm.
brain waves, and it's monitoring and measuring all those in the different areas of your head. And so, that's been used for all kinds of reasons. And the clinic that I worked at, we used it to get a baseline of what was going on with people and how we might utilize the equipment to rebalance, if they're going through trauma or ADD or ADHD or, just bipolar. I don't mean just bipolar
Yeah.
depression. There's no just about that. So, or you just want to enhance, increase sports enhancement, different things. So we used that measurement, that monitoring tool to see what was happening in people's brains as they were
Wow.
going through the meditation process. Some of it was live, and some of those meditations were 3 and 4 hours long.
Wow.
Just quite amazing what our thoughts can do, because I literally saw in action people that healed spontaneously from certain events, and you could see the changes
Mm.
in the brain.
Wow.
Incredible.
Fascinating.
So I would say on my journey, I've had so many wonderful experiences. That was probably the one that cemented for me the most what our thoughts do to our body.
Mm. And you mentioned earlier that you had some resistance to this initially because
Yeah,
you had trouble reconciling it with your religious beliefs.
yes,
So tell us about that a little bit and how.
absolutely. And I do think a lot of that went back to just studying and researching and understanding that God created all of this. God created the atoms and the molecules, which everything around us is. We are, our thoughts are, everything we touch, feel, see, don't see are atoms and molecules. And when you really get into scripture, God spoke the world into existence. He, as a man thinketh, that's in Proverbs. So as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Speak and you can move mountains. And that's in Matthew. So when you really start digging into scripture, it's full of quantum science. We don't we don't equate it that way, but that's what it is. And I even look at prayer that way now, especially like prayer is that energetic quantum connection between us and God. What happens in all of that, I don't really know, but it was just through studying and getting comfortable with that and realizing that, this is all God's creation and there's no separating of it. So, even when you look in the Bible, God talked about names and changing people's names because names have energy, have frequency. And so, Saul was changed to Paul, and you go into all of that. And I just studied more and more of that, the power that our words have. I actually have accountability partners that I've used in the past, and I'm like, if you hear me saying something that's detrimental to my body or somebody else, the I can't, I won't, it'll never, all of those terms that we use, they have power. So let's turn those back around. Let's turn those back
Yeah.
around. Be
Yeah. And
accountable.
it's very interesting to me that in the study of psychology, it's really pretty fairly recently that they've actually started studying positive
Mhm.
psychology
Yes.
and the very real physical and emotional effect of not just the power of positive thinking, but just what that does, what positivity of as opposed to negativity actually does to us
Yes.
physically and mentally and emotionally. It's
Exactly.
amazing.
It is because when you think about it, I don't care what emotion it is, whether it's positive or negative or, in between, certain things start happening in the brain and that creates certain chemicals that cascade down into the body. And that can create, they do laughter therapy now because they're finding that laughter
Mhm.
increases T cells. So those emotions, the power of our thoughts creates all kinds of chemicals in our body. And, there's elements that I think people don't think about with us. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Kim Diorama is, but I love her work. She was actually an emergency room doctor that's gone more into, this type of energy work. And she talks about the fact that we're transducers. When we think we're transducing all these signals and energy all the time. For example, have you been in a crowded room and somebody walks in, you don't even see them, and yet the hair stands up on the back of your neck? Have you ever had one of those experiences where you just feel something creepy? Well, those signals are being projected, and we can do the same thing when we're around somebody. And Tracy, I want to say this with you, where we just really connect with each other's energy. Something is happening on this wonderful, beautiful, vibrational, energetic level. So we are those transducers. We're receptors. When your energy is reaching out, I'm receiving it. My cells are receiving it. My energy is receiving it. My emotions are receiving it. And they're cascading into all these different chemicals in our body. And then we also are transmuters. So that means that just because I am where I am now doesn't mean I can't transmute into something else. I can't change into something else. We have what's called these neural pathways in the brain, which are like little roads in our brain that when we think something over and over and over, that's the path that goes down. Well, we can actually clip those by creating new thoughts and new emotions and rethinking them and having these healthier neural pathways in our bodies. So we change all the time.
Yeah, I
And
like to think about those neural pathways like the so many of our roads, which we a lot, many people don't realize, is like it started off as an animal trail. It's like that's where the animals went. And then when it came time for people to make their way through that area, it's like, oh, well, they followed those paths that were made by the animals. And so now that people were using it, it got a little more worn. And then when it came time to, actually like make roads, it's like, well, that's already there. And so then it became bigger. And now we have these, what people used to be two wagon ruts across the prairies is now Highway 80, And so
Right.
it's like now it's a super highway, and it's because of just repeated use. And so when we're trying to change our thoughts and our habits, it it's important to not get discouraged by feeling like we're walking through the weeds, because we may be walking through the weeds.
Right.
But if we walk through those weeds enough, we can make that into a really lovely road that's easy to traverse in our brain.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And our habits and our thoughts help create those beautiful pathways.
Mhm.
Let's get rid of those weeds and let's create gardens of thought.
Oh, that's lovely. So what are some struggles that you see people facing in this area, and like what strategies do you have to,
Hmm. Do
like
you
for
mean,
you, it's very health related. Your path is
yes,
very health related.
yes.
And so, maybe some struggles that people have either in those areas where they may be frustrated with
Mm,
not getting answers or not seeing results, or maybe it's the, feeling kind of resistance to something kind of different that has been observed before, but not actually understood and named, or,
mm,
just any kind of struggles that you kind of want to bring up and maybe a
absolutely.
way to address that.
Yeah, so the thing I see the most is that person that has been through everything and they're so frustrated they don't even know where to turn to. And then there's that, all that information out there that says this is good for you, and then on that hand it says no, it's bad for you. There's a lot of confusion in the health world, and the science keeps changing. And so, I've even heard these big names in that world say, well, last year this is the pain I was on, but now the new science shows this.
Mhm.
So that can be so overwhelming and confusing for people. And that's what I love about the tool that I have, because it's showing what is specific and good for you as an individual at that moment in time. Let's wipe the noise out. Let's
Mhm.
forget about all of that. What are you doing or not doing that is helping or hindering your body? Now, when it does come to what I do, people do get very caught up in, is this new age? There's chakras, there's meridians, there's frequency. So, I explain that the chakras and meridians that he's talking, that the machine is referencing, isn't on any kind of religious aspect. It's the frequency that runs like this way through our body. I always equate it to like a big, the power box on the outside of your house.
Mhm.
And then the meridians are like the little wires in your house. So it's
Mhm.
not discussing anything on the religious aspect. It's just how does that frequency line up and how is it impacting you at this moment in time? So I think once people understand that and they stop and think, oh, yeah, I can control my house from anywhere in the world now, just like we can do with this device, or click remote, my TV's on, or
Mhm.
my garage is open, or, how are we doing this Zoom across the
Yeah.
airwaves? So there's so much frequency we don't think about. We use MRIs, we do, come on, they
Yeah.
can control our refrigerators, our smart refrigerators from afar. So it's really people grasping that concept and understanding that this isn't really so foreign. The way it's used may be foreign to them, but it's really very common frequency based practices that we're using.
So maybe keeping in mind that the verbiage may be different. That,
Yes, good point.
somebody might, talking about chakras might make somebody feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
But if we can go, okay, that's a word. I'm a little hung up on that word, that's a word. But
Hmm.
then just kind of going, but wait, what's the idea behind that?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we think about things that used to terrify people back in the day. They'd look in the sky and they'd see a comet and they would think, oh, these terrible things are happening, because they didn't understand what that was. Well, now we understand what it is. So their verbiage for it was different. And
Mm.
because that verbiage was different, the experience was different. But it's just, if we can kind of go, okay, wait, let me look at results. kind of like I love in so many things that I do. It's like put on your lab coat, put on your
Right.
lab coat, just look at it as a scientist.
I
All we're doing is we're
love that.
gathering information. We're
I
gathering
love that.
information. And if for example, if the word chakras hangs a bit, okay, set this word aside for a moment
Mhm.
and let's just observe what is happening with, in this case, with this scan and with this frequency that we're talking about, what's actually happening. Okay, so whether it's chakras or whether it's something else, or if it's just neuroscience, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
look at the results and consider, is it potentially harmful? Is it, so these are my acid test, like, is this something that's going to hurt if I try it? Is there potential danger here? Or is it something that's just, it's something that is going to be an ongoing income for somebody because I have to do this certain thing and pay this and do this the rest of my, so it's
Right.
like, is it a money-making scheme? Is it going to
Right.
be hurtful? Okay. If it passes those, it's kind of like, hey, just put on the lab coat, get away from any words that are hanging me up, and see what might be there. And then if after whatever experiment I design for my own scientific self, it passes it, great. And if it doesn't, then set it aside and move on, and
Love
nothing's been
that.
harmed.
I'm going to use that in the future. I do. I love it. I tend to get really geeky and really technical with things. And my husband, God bless him, comes right alongside me. All of this is newer information to him. And he says things in such an easy, simple way, similar to what you just said. And, really, you do have to learn to speak to your audience. And I have to say, that's probably my weak point because I get so geeky and into it.
If you're a science nerd, you want to geek out with Lisa.
Yes. And you did touch on, the cost of this because you can enter into this as a multi-level business, the AO scan. In saying that, it's such a great tool for your whole family because you can look at things real time you start with a voice recording that measures through the trigeminal nerve in the brain what's going on in your brain and body comes back around as what's called a cybernetic feedback loop. And your brain is actually processing and saying, hey, this looks out of range. That doesn't look out of range. So it's so incredible what you can do and how you can support your family. There's nothing diagnostic. I want to clearly state that. It is all educational, informational, and if you love to learn, yeah.
Well, and so speaking of the cost of it, you had something that you wanted to offer listeners,
Yeah,
correct?
I do. Yeah. So anybody that would love to connect with me, I would offer the inner voice scan. That's the one I was just speaking of, where you speak for 10 seconds. It cascades around your brain and through your body. And then what it does is gives a beautiful piece of music, actually several pieces of music that are very specific to your skin because the scan shows the three highest frequencies out of range at that time in your voice, which very definitely connects to different things in your brain and body, and then gives the one lowest. So the pieces of music that it creates for you actually has what's called balancing harmonics in it, has binaural beats, which means it goes from one side of the head to the other and does a little bit of a frequency difference between the two, what's called an offset, and then what's called solfeggio frequencies. And, I could geek out on that. Those frequencies, those of you that are familiar with the Gregorian chants,
Mhm.
those frequencies are layered in their chants and they're very
Mm.
uplifting and very beautiful and very grounding. So I would love to offer that to anybody who's curious about learning more or stepping into this and learning how to reduce stress by listening to these amazing pieces of music.
So passes the test of you're offering this complimentary for
Yes,
those who
I
are
am.
listening. And to do the scan, all you have to do is speak. And to the
Mhm.
result that you get back, all you have to do is listen. So those are not things that are going to hurt you.
Right. No, they're not. And I just need a little bit of basic information, name, email, height, weight. That's it. So,
So So there you go. You will get that as part of your package. You'll get an
Yeah.
email where you can connect with Lisa and you can claim that complimentary scan if you'd like to. And so speaking of connecting with you, Lisa, where can our audience find you if they want to
Yeah.
know more?
Yeah.
Website, email, whatever.
Both, yes. You can email me at anewcreationwellness@outlook.com, or my website is A New Creation Wellness.
There
You
you
can
go.
hop on.
And listeners don't have to worry about writing down any of these things, the connection points that you're hearing, because you'll get an email that has all this written for you. So you can find anybody, any of our speakers throughout the month that you want to find, you'll be able to find them through an email that's coming to you. So don't feel like you have to remember what they said and hurry up and grab something to write it down with or whatever. So let's just wrap up with one final question. Since our event is creating a body that creating a life that nourishes body and soul, what do you think are some of the key things? Tell me your top one or two, maybe three things that you feel like are key to really having a life that is enriching and fulfilling and really nourishes not only your body, but your soul as well.
The number one thing is don't isolate. We all learned that lesson through COVID, and stay in community, stay aligned with people that just light you on fire, that give you joy. Learn to laugh, learn to have that joy in your life, and enjoy sunlight every morning, every evening. That light that is so important to our body. Go out for just a few minutes morning and night, before sunset, and enjoy that, and take baby steps. You don't have to do everything all at once. People think they have to learn everything all at once, do everything all at once. But baby steps are just so important.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been so much fun talking with you. I just love chatting with Lisa. And you can chat with her too.
Yes.
If you want to connect with her, you'll get that information in that email that's coming to you. Thank you so much. And this here is to creating a life that nourishes you body and soul.